So one of the most difficult parts of navigating a golf course is uneven lies. And what's even more difficult is that the arena that you actually practice the game of golf at a driving range is always flat. So we included this uneven lie board in our practice facility at Marion, and something we use pretty much on a daily basis with our lessons. So when you're out on the golf course, here are a few tips to navigate those lies. Turn, shift, lift. Boom, right here. So the first one we're going to talk about is ball below the feet. So what I mean by that is when I'm in my normal setup position, that golf ball is now several inches below my club head. So in order to make good contact and still hit the ground and get that max compression, you have to lower yourself to reach the golf ball. So what I want you to do is you take your normal setup position, and we're going to figure out how to reach the ball. So, okay, I'm a little too high. How am I going to lower my center of gravity? I'm going to get a little wider. I'm going to start squatting a bit and lowering my backside. I did not do it by a normal stance and excessively hinging from the waist, okay? I did it by lowering your whole center of mass, your whole center of gravity this way. So now I've officially reached the golf ball. So when you actually make this swing, the idea is you get low and you have to stay low. So I want you to make sure that your backside, your legs are staying more flexed during the golf swing so that you can still reach the ground. So that's for good contact. Now, as far as the ball flight and the curvature, it's common, it's not exactly a law, it's common because the ball is below your feet, the lie angle of the club is a little bit more like this, a little bit flatter. So this loft lie magnet's going to point a little bit right. So it is common for the shot to leak and fade just a little bit right. So just know that when we're picking our target. So for great contact here, we're going to get a little wider, lower our backside, aim just a touch left of the target, assuming that this ball is going to fade a little bit. Then during the swing, I want you to feel like you're staying low. So you can see my knees, I've stayed kind of grounded in the shot, making sure that I reach the golf ball. That's the trickiest part of the ball below your feet lie. So next is the ball above the feet. So ball above the feet, now the golf ball is closer to me than if we were on a flat lie. So we need to shorten your golf club, first of all, to make sure that we don't hit too much ground. So when you approach your shot on the golf course, the first thing you should do is make a practice swing. The more severe the lie, sometimes we find ourselves in scenarios like this, the more you have to choke down with your hands. This would be kind of like a baseball swing here. But if it's only a little bit above your feet, you might need to grab a couple inches down, and I want you to make a practice swing and see where you bottom out. If you don't choke down enough, you might bottom out back here, meaning the ground got in the way, you need to shorten your golf club. The next thing I want you to do is stand a little taller. Get away from the golf ball just a touch. We still need to be in our inclination just a little bit, but you are going to rise up just a touch. And again, make that practice swing to get a feel of where you're bottoming out. Now, because of the lie, and again, our lie angle, loft lie magnet here, the golf club, because our hands are a little bit lower, it's going to point that lie angle. The club's going to be a little bit more upright now, so it's going to point that yellow line a little bit more left. So the tendency is more of a draw off this lie. It's not a law, it's just a tendency. It just might happen. So we have a little bit of a fade wind on the driving range today, so it's not going to curve much, but normally on the golf course, I'd aim a little right of the target, assuming that it's going to draw. So again, with this lie, stand up a little bit taller. I'm going to choke down an appropriate amount to make sure that I bottom out in the right spot. I'm also going to feel a little bit more rounded with my swing to kind of match the shape of this hill. The last thing we want to do on a ball above the feet lie is to swing a bit more out to in, because we would definitely catch more ground. So I'm going to feel, draw, swing, choke down a little bit, stand up a little bit taller. That was a nice draw shot with the ball above my feet. So next is the downhill lie, and I think this is probably the most difficult lie of the four because there's a lot to consider with setup and technique and also club selection. So first let's talk about club selection. On a downhill lie, this 7-iron that I have in my hand, if it was in a normal lie, this would be a little bit of how it would launch, but now on this downhill lie, you can see that yellow line is tilted way down, so this 7-iron might turn into a 6-iron or a 5-iron. So now if I have obstacles in front of me, say I have a penalty area that I need to carry, I might need to consider a different club because it's going to launch lower and not carry as far, but also roll out more. So there's a lot more decision making with club selection and target selection off a downhill lie. So next, as far as setup and technique, because the ground behind me, my right leg is a lot higher than my left leg, I need to match my body with the slope. So I want you to feel like your shoulders are tilting left. You have a lot more weight on your front foot. Your pelvis is even tilted left. Everything is matching the hill so that the swing can be a little bit more of a downward action, okay? A little bit steeper rather than here where the ground would get in the way. This is also a really good drill for those of you that hang back, that have too much weight on their right foot, because then you'd really hit ground way behind the golf ball. So to hit ball first, it's also advantageous to put that ball a little bit farther back in your stance. So between the lie, between the ball being farther back, between the tilted positioning of your body, this ball is going to launch lower and you can't fight it. You can't fight it by tilting back and trying to add loft. That's why that club selection is really, really important. Then as far as the overall shape of the swing, we don't want to have too much of a draw swing or into out with the shape of our swing because then that ground would also get in the way. So it's best to feel a little bit of an out to in or a little bit of a fade swing to get the shape of the swing a little bit more down and left. So I'm going to feel like I have a lot of body weight going forward and the shape of my swing is a little bit more out to in. So those things result in a low fade, most likely. So I'm going to put that ball a little farther back. I'm going to get my body's orientation and match that hill. And I'm going to feel a little bit more out to in with my swing. So see that ball launch pretty low. It's peeling a little bit to the right. That's definitely not the normal launch for my 7-iron. That launched more like a 5 or a 4-iron. So the more severe the hill, the lower it's going to launch. So this is a tough one for the 3 reasons: club selection, your setup, and your actual motion. So whenever you can get on a downhill lie, drop a few balls to practice. This is a really good one for ball striking. So now the uphill lie, maybe the easiest of the 4 lies we've covered, but there's still a lot to consider with club selection and how this golf ball is going to launch. So because this hill is tilted so much this way, my right foot's way lower than my left, this golf ball is going to launch higher because this 7-iron is all of a sudden going to turn more into an 8 or 9-iron. So if I carry my 7-iron 160 yards, now I might carry this only 150 yards. So again, we have to consider what we're carrying and make a judgment call from there. Also, because it's going to launch a lot higher, it's going to stop a lot faster. So we get some nice control because of landing angle. The things we need to consider with our setup, because we're on this uphill slope, we need things to get a little bit more shallow. Okay, so we're going to match our body with the hill again. So we're going to match our shoulders. We're going to tilt to our right just a touch, bringing a little bit more weight to my right foot. Okay, then when we actually swing, you're going to feel a little bit more rounded, a little bit more in and out with the path of the swing, a little bit more draw to, again, kind of match the slope of the hill. The last thing we'd want to do is be a bit more out to in because you're going to crash into the hill too much. That's too steep. So we need to shallow things out with our setup and the overall shape of the swing. So between those things and how we set up, the result of the shot should be a bit of a high draw. So here we have a bit of a fade wind, so it's not going to draw that much. But again, off this uphill lie, ball a little bit forward, match my shoulders with the hill, feel a little bit more in and out with my swing, so it will result in a higher launch and more draw. See that launch much higher than my normal 7-iron, and it will just stop on a dime. So maybe the easiest of the 4 lies, but still a lot to consider when you're navigating obstacles out on the golf course. So keep in mind there's many variations to uneven lies. You might get a ball above the feet downhill lie, or conversely, ball below the feet uphill lie. So the goal is to always match your body with the slope and match your swing with the slope. So you might feel a little bit more in to out. You might feel a little bit more out to in. The idea is to get the right balance of steepeners and shallowers to make sure that you're hitting ball first, okay? So start with the 4 uneven lies and then take that information to the many variations that you're going to see out on the golf course.